There's a terrible rumor going around about the Buddha. And the rumor is this, that he was a deadbeat dad. Worse than that, we're told that he was a bad son, a bad husband, and a bad brother. A man who abandoned his family selfishly so that he could walk the spiritual path. And the reason this rumor is going around is because we in the West only know part of the story. Most of us, if we've been doing this Buddhist thing for a while, we know about the Buddha's early life. We know that he lived a life of worldly pleasures and that he was unfulfilled. We know that he had a wife and a son, and we know that he eventually left the palace in order to find a way to end sorrow for all sentient beings. We also know that he realized enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. However, for many of us, that's where the story stops. We don't know what happened next. Now, I plan to remedy that today during this Dharma talk. However, if you would like to learn about the Buddha's life for yourself, study the primary text and learn about his life even before he took human birth, learn about his teachings, etc., I encourage you to read the Lalita Vistara Sutra. I have a copy of it here. And that will make the truth plain. Now, let's get down to brass tacks. Was the Buddha a deadbeat dad? Well, it's complicated. It is true that he lived a life of worldly pleasure, of hedonistic desires. It's true that he had a wife and a son, and he left them in order to pursue spirituality and find a way to realize enlightenment. However, we must remember that he did not leave his family in destitution. Buddha was a prince. He was the son of a king, and his wife and son were left under the protection of his father and his stepmother. So while they were left to live without Buddha for a while, they were not left alone. They had wealth, they had servants, they had protection. We can think of what Buddha did as leaving for a long retreat. Something many of us have done when we've left to go on retreat at the temple for a few days, a few weeks, a few months, some of us, even a few years. This is what Buddha did. He left his family to go on retreat, to go deeper into the spiritual path. What's important is what he did after he realized enlightenment. He went around teaching the Dharma for a few years, and then he went back to the palace to speak and return to his family. While there, he taught the Dharma to all of them. He taught the Dharma to his father, the king. He taught it to his stepmother, his son, his wife, and his half-brother. And as a result of the Buddha's teaching, his stepmother, Gautami, his son, Rahula, his wife, Yasodhara, and his half-brother, Nanda Shakya, all realized enlightenment. They entered the Buddhist Sangha, they became arhats, and upon death, they entered into nirvana. His father, the king, did not enter the Buddhist order immediately because he did not want to give up his kingly responsibilities. However, upon his death, the Buddha returned once again to the palace, continued teaching his father the Dharma, and before he died, his father, King Sudona, also realized enlightenment. So far from abandoning his family, the Buddha gave them the greatest gift anyone could ever give. He gave them the end to suffering. He gave them enlightenment, the gift of nirvana. And far from making him a deadbeat, in my estimation, that makes him the greatest son, the greatest father, the greatest brother that ever lived. Amitabha.